never dealt with being the actual host. Dean always deals with all this stuff. Give it a second. Right.
Oh.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
We're going to give it just a few minutes for some people to come on, and we'll start in just a few.
Hello.
Stu's saying hi to everybody.
I love it.
Stu's actually going to be the moderator today.
Oh, I'll get mine. Widget. Widget's a little nugget.
So how about at 7:03, we'll jump right in and get moving.
Okay, sounds good.
Seems heads up if you want to use the chat. If you know how to use the chat, we're going to use that to ask questions. And it's definitely great to say hi to everybody. Say where you're tuning in from is always nice to know. So if you have any troubles using that, the one thing when using chat is just to make sure it is sending to everyone. Does everybody know how to use that? Yeah, it looks like everybody's got it going. Great. People coming from all over the place. This is great.
I love it.
All right. We'll give it just another minute and then we'll get moving.
You're muted. You're muted, Maria. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Maria and I met when I was doing a post-bac at USF or UCF. I always get them confused.
USF.
USF. There we go.
Million years ago.
Yes, a billion years ago. It's good to see you, honey.
Yeah.
Hey.
All right. Yeah, so I guess we're going to go ahead. We'll get started. So for this, you're more than welcome to turn your video on if you would like. I do ask that you keep your microphone off just so it keeps background noise off, like out of the picture. So if you have any questions, just feel free to write it in the chat. I'm going to be kind of moderating and kind of filtering questions to Taylor as they come in. Yeah, it's going to be great. So thank you all for coming. So I'm Travis. This is the second one of these that we're doing, and we are really excited to have Taylor on this with us. She's going to be showing us her studio and talking about her work. She is currently in Sarasota, Florida, where it is nice and sunny and warm. It is currently snowing in Pennsylvania in the middle of May, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But yeah. So how are you doing, Taylor?
I'm doing good. I feel like it's a beautiful day here. It was in the 80s and breezy, and trying to make the best of staying at home all the time because it's definitely been a change of pace. So,
Great.
And thank you, Travis, for inviting me to do this. It's kind of a really cool way and silver lining to get to see kind of more of the personal setting of people's, artistic career. So
Great. Well, we're excited to have you on here. So for everybody that doesn't know, this is a series that is currently happening every Friday. Taylor is our second speaker of the series. Next week, we have Jamie Bates Sloan, who's going to be talking about her work, and she may give us a studio tour. I don't know if she currently has a studio space to work out of. The following week, we're going to have Mark Arnold, who will be talking about his work, and I'm sure he will show us his studio space. And the last Friday of May, we're going to have Lindsay Ketterer-Gates, who is the director at Touchstone, who makes fabulous work, who will be talking about her stuff. And she may or may not have a studio space that she's going to show us. Time will tell. So if you're looking forward to any of those, please sign up. The registration's already up. You can go through Touchstone's website and register. I'll be posting Jamie's link on the Instagram Artist Happy Hour series directly after this meeting. So we hope to see you at those as well. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to start out and just ask Taylor a few questions to kind of see what she's been up to, since it is kind of a very strange time to be making work and kind of be alive right now. So I really want to see what she's been doing and how she's been dealing with working through this pandemic.
Yeah. So I think the thing that has happened for me is that it's such a change of pace that I had to kind of set a schedule for myself. You know, because I do teach at Ringling College of Art and Design, so I did have some classes that went online. So I'd teach online, but, you know, not going to school and coming back from school, and often I hang out at school like later or before in order to help students. I kind of had more time on my hands, and so I've been, at first it was kind of weird, like I didn't know what to do, and now I think that I set a schedule of trying to get into the studio, trying to actually have some balance, like trying to work out, trying to eat healthy, trying not to kind of get into a slump, because I definitely feel like it's such a change for me and for everyone that I know, that I had to do something different in order to kind of feel a little different. And then, you know, there's been a little bit of silver lining in some of this, and one of the things that I think has changed is I'm talking to people a lot more because I have some time, and so this kind of format's been really cool for me. I've watched other artists give studio tours and lectures that live in California and live in different places, and so that's been really awesome. And then I kind of, with another guy named Andrew Long, started a little Florida kind of get together with some artists where it's like 5 potters and 5 sculptors. We're calling it the Social Distance Residency. And we're meeting like once a week and hanging out in the studio and talking about ideas and collaborating on pieces. So, you know, not all bad, definitely different, but figuring out how to still stay connected, you know?
Yeah, I think this is a crazy time where it's actually been really good in a lot of ways because things like this are happening. I mean, a lot of, you know, it's very hard to give artist talks to everybody around the country, which is kind of great that now people are doing all of that. So I'm really happy to see that. I know, like me personally, I feel like you feel like you have all this time, but it's really kind of awkward time in a way. You know, you're spending it at your house. You know, I've had several conversations with a lot of other artists who kind of have been struggling to get moving with their work kind of at this, even though they have all of the time in the world. At least it feels like that. So has this kind of affected what you're making and kind of how much you're making?
It is, you know, actually, it kind of has affected what I've been making because a lot of my stuff has gotten canceled. And so usually I'm driven by deadlines where I'm in the studio trying to make something for a deadline. So for the first time in a long time, I've actually got some free time, and I've been doing collaborations, which has been really fun because it's like really getting me outside of my box. And I'm doing one collaboration with an artist, a painter, where I'm making the sculptures and he's surfacing the entire thing. Then I'm doing some collaborations with this social distancing residency, and then my roommate is a potter, and so him and I have decided that we're going to start making some stuff together. And that would have never have happened because I would have had deadlines where I wouldn't have been able to sneak that in. But since those deadlines have kind of faded away or rescheduled themselves, I find myself being open to more collaborations. So
Question: how are you dealing with these collaborations?
that's a good question. So two of them are from Sarasota. So one of them actually lives with me. So we just trade off. Like when we make something, I give it to him, and he vice versa. The painter lives on the other end of town, so we've been doing a thing where I, like, in a week we'll make a bunch of stuff and then I'll put it in a box and I'll drive it over to his house and I'll put it like on his driveway and then get back into my car, and then he'll come out and get it and surface it, and then when I come back again the following week, and I give him more material, he gives me the stuff that he's surfaced. So that's been kind of fun and weird. A lot of sitting on the in our cars or in the driveway talking ideas. And then for the social distancing thing, we've just been sending pictures. So we're kind of doing like an exquisite corpse / reaction to pieces. So it's like one person starts a piece and then they send me a picture, and then I make something off of that, and then I send that picture to the next artist. So they don't see the first, they just see mine. And so it's kind of like we're doing that down the line. And our intention with that is at the end is to have a show where it's like all of these pieces that were inspired by each other over the course of the quarantine. So
That sounds
who knows?
great.
Yeah, I mean, it should be really fun or like super weird, one of the two.
I definitely am interested in seeing all of that. So, that's awesome. Yeah, it's such a weird time to kind of figure that out, especially, I mean, as being an artist, I mean, I know you pretty well, and I feel like being out and kind of talking to people is a huge part of your personality, and being able to have that and trying to find avenues where you can still do that while being stuck in your house is super important. So that's awesome to kind of hear the different things that you've been working on. Do you feel like your work's changing at all because of this, kind of what you're making?
Yeah, I think that's a cool question because right now I feel like it hasn't, but I know for sure after this is all said and done, something will stick. You know what I mean? Like I'm making different shapes and I'm making different stuff, and I'm also being really playful. Sometimes I can get pretty serious about what I'm making. Like I come in with a pretty strict schedule. So this has been really nice because it's like, oh, like, well, whatever. Like I'm gonna make a cloud that has like rain falling out of it today. So I think one of the things that's really great about letting go or like not having full intention or deadlines is that you end up doing it and something sticks. So like I know, say in 6 months to a year, something's gonna stick from this kind of stuff that I'm making now. But I couldn't tell you what it is, so we'll find out.
So we'll wait and see. All right, so I'm gonna ask you one last question before you jump in and get our studio. What do you think is the hardest thing you've been dealing with kind of throughout this past month or two?
So I am not a homebody. That is like not my jam. My husband on the other end can like hang out at home like all day long and like doesn't make him like crawl in his skin. So that's been the biggest one, is just trying to be careful and trying to stay inside and trying not to go out and do stuff. Even the little things like going to the grocery store to get like a piece of fish for dinner. So that's been my biggest thing, is like adjusting to the way that I typically live my life, which is usually in and out, in and out, in and out. And I would have to say I'm finally like settling into it, because at first I was really frustrated where I was like, I want to, and then I don't, or I think about if I'm going to go to the grocery store, I need to make sure that I have a lot of stuff I need to get so I don't go back for a while. And that's been the main thing, is just being at home is not a bad place for me. Like there's a lot of good stuff here, but I do like to go out. And I like to go see people and I like to socialize. And so being cooped up is not my jam, but I'm getting better with it. So I don't know.
It's good to hear. Yeah, I know that you had a bunch of things get canceled for you, which is unfortunate, but hopefully we will see you out and about soon teaching
Yeah.
and doing other residencies and stuff. But if you want to go ahead and kind of give us a walkthrough of your studio
Sure.
now, I'm sure everybody would love to see what you have.
Absolutely. Okay, so bear with me. I have a laptop or I don't know, I have some sort of computer that I'm gonna be able to switch it around. So let's see, I gotta take that off. I knew that was gonna happen. Oh, hold on. My virtual background, I gotta take off. All right, so there's my really cool and fancy vacuum. Okay, so I'm in my studio right now, and here's kind of the layout where I only have like 2 tables that I make stuff on, and I've got shelving, and then I've got some scuts. So, and then I've got a bunch of just storage, and I've got 1 dog out here. This is Sassy. She's the jam. So, okay. So we're just gonna kind of walk through. Right now I've been kind of making some smaller work, so you guys can kind of see that up on the wall. I do usually hang everything I make just to kind of see how it sits on the wall before I throw it out into the world. I've got a couple of shelving units, and they're at the very bottom. On the left-hand side, it's all my glazes. I'm not organized. I just have them all in a bin labeled. I got my wearboards, and then the rest is just storage for, things I've been making. So got some older pieces, got a little bit of jewelry. This piece right here, this rabbit piece, I just finished. It's gonna go to a show at In Tandem Gallery in Bakersville, North Carolina. And then a wall piece, which I kind of have a shadow on, so sorry, that I should put on the wall, but I haven't yet. So those pieces are going to a show that I probably think will be on the computer and not so much an opening. And then I've got 2 scuts. They're workhorses. I forget their numbers, but they're meant for, let's see, it's a KM 1027. They're great. I use them all the time. They don't break down. I really like scuts. There's my little promotion for them. And then the last thing that's really nice is I've got these 2 big doors that look out into my my backyard. And my backyard is fenced, so it's really nice because I can have my dogs in here, and we all can hang out and have a good time. Right now I'm super low on clay, which is something that will be interesting. I haven't had to bite the bullet yet and purchase any. But usually I'll buy like 600 pounds, and then I'll just tarp it up, and I'll keep it, sorry, we're gonna switch around. I keep it in my house, so usually 600 pounds will last me like maybe like a year and a half, because a lot of stuff I build kind of not like super thin, but like thin enough. So usually I'll tarp it so it doesn't go dry. But I bought some clay when I taught at Penland maybe 2 years ago, and I'm just at the tail end of it, so I got to purchase some more. But usually the thing that I pitch with my studio setup is, for a very long time, I was affiliated with academia that had a studio space for me. And it wasn't until I moved here that I decided to have a home studio, because I started working at a school that doesn't have like a whole lot of clay. So it's been an interesting transition, because I've always been in a setting where there's been a lot of students or other people to work with. And so this has been much more of an isolation thing, and I've just had to get used to it. But it's really small, and like I don't need an extruder, I don't need a slab roller, I don't need those things, and I'm okay with that. Like the more equipment I have, the more stuff will break down, and it ends up just kind of piling up in my garage. So I like keeping it bare bones. I like having like 2 tables, my computer out here for entertainment, a couple of shelves, and my kilns. So that's my very simple studio setup.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for showing us your space. I know it's always kind of weird to let people into your home studio. It is great I love seeing what people have to work with. It's kind of amazing how little you actually need to kind of set up a home studio.
Yes.
Um, which is great, and it's probably wonderful to have something like that during all of this going on.
Absolutely. I think I'm really lucky right now because that's been one thing that you know, it's really great because I'm able to come here at any time, and I do. You know, I work with porcelain, and any of those who work with porcelain know it's a pretty finicky clay body. So I'm constantly like nursing my clay, where like I'm watching it, you know, I'll uncover it for like 2 hours and then I'll cover it back up again. So I find that I have actually a much more intimate relationship with my clay. Like I'm constantly looking at it and touching it and making sure that it's drying the way that I need it to dry so it doesn't crack. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I'm lucky. I love it here. I can't complain.
Yeah, I'm very jealous that it looks nice and sunny out there right now. So I would trade with you any day.
Totally.
So great.
Awesome.
Well, if you want to jump in and give your slide talk,
I can.
definitely, if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat. We will try to kind of hold off on them till the end, but feel free to write them in there, and we look forward to seeing your work.
All right, here we go. Share. Okay. So there it is. And we'll go down here. All right, can you guys see that? Are we good to go? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure before I start talking. Yeah, okay, so my name is Taylor Robenalt, and I kind of wanted to start off with a little bit of information about what inspired me as a kid growing up. One of the things that I had in Ohio, because I'm from a small town in Ohio, guys, where there was really not a whole lot to do. My mom was an architect and still does some architecture, but she always had really interesting prints around the house. And one of the artists that she had a lot of prints from was Salvador Dali. And I remember as a kid just being like, this is amazing, not only for the surrealist aspect of it being very whimsical and very dreamlike, but how technically good Salvador Dali was. So that was something that I grew up with, and I think it stuck with me because I think I do make work that has a lot of dreamlike quality to it and some surrealist moments. And I do think I'm at a point now where I can say I'm kind of a tight artist, where I like to be very detail oriented. All right. Okay. The second artist that she had a lot of prints of was Georgia O'Keeffe. And as a kid, I just loved the colors. I really, really, really thought they were beautiful. They were all, you know, all the ones she had were either the skulls or the beautiful flowers. And it wasn't until later on I realized there was a lot of sexual connotation to it. But I really just as a kid responded to the shapes and the forms and the color. And then, you know, after a little bit of figuring out what kind of artist I wanted to be, I wasn't a very good 2D artist. I found out that I'm much better at 3D. Some of the contemporary ceramic artists that inspired me the most was Lisa Clegg, and it's the same thing. You know, she has a lot of surrealist qualities to her work, a lot of dreamlike. She's technically incredibly talented. You know, and just I loved her whole series where she has multiple heads, and I think that that's super cool because it's just this idea of like multiple personalities maybe wrapped up in one soul. And then another artist that is the same thing, super interesting and weird and surrealist, and his work I love because it's a little bit more dark, is John Byrd. And he's an artist that was really influential in my life because he has a love affair with porcelain, and he makes it look like plastics or other materials by the way that he surfaces it and treats it. And he's the one that introduced me to porcelain and showed me a lot of the amazing techniques that I really tried to not be using because porcelain's so finicky, but then I ended up coming back to. So I love this piece. I love kind of the chopped and altered, and then the little like window of organs. Super creepy. A non-clay artist that I'm really fond of is a woman named Peta Coyne. And one of the reasons why I love her work, and I think that I pull some inspiration from, is her work is like all consuming. It has lots of taxidermy animals that are stuck in these luscious crushed velvet flowers dipped in wax, and they're often giant installations. So the first time I ever saw it was in New York City, and I was just absolutely, I mean, like I stopped right in my path when I walked through the door and saw this overwhelming room full of opulence and consumption kind of all wrapped up in one. So here's kind of an example of the taxidermy animals that she puts into her work, and then surrounds them with the flowers. So it was really funny. You know, I watched Travis's lecture, and he started off with some undergrad work, and I had to dig to find some of this stuff. And I think the reason why I don't talk about it that much is because it's kind of bad. It's really embarrassing. So I wanted to show you so you can kind of see the growth that's happened. You know, so this is my undergrad work. I didn't get into clay until my post-bac year for the most part. I was a sculptor. I was doing bronze casting and stone carving, and I don't really have a lot of images of it because at that time I wasn't taking pictures because I just didn't know that's what I was supposed to do yet. So I got into clay at the very tail end of my undergrad. I had this amazing teacher named Peter Biesecker who, by the grace of all grace, gave me a table because he's a potter. And I was like, look, man, I don't want to throw pots. And he was like, all right, here's a table. Tell me your agenda. If you stick to it, we'll get along. And so this is kind of the work that I made then. And the one on the left is me in a shark costume in Halloween from like, you know, when I was like 7. It was a self-portrait. And then the other one is this portrait of me when I would get into arguments with my family, how awkward I would feel. And you know, looking back on it, it's like so not good. So here's some of the bronze casting stuff. Kind of dark, kind of weird, but you know, that's kind of where I was then. So after undergrad, I really wanted to go to grad school, but I didn't have a portfolio, and I realized that I needed to build one. And somebody told me that USF had, sorry, I have C here, but it's USF where John Byrd teaches, had a post-bac, and that was in Florida. And so I was like, hey, like I'm from Florida, why not go back to Florida and try this out? So I got in, and my goal there was to learn how to sculpt figuratively better. It also is to learn how to be cleaner, like tighter. And so, you know, this is a piece that I made, and it's porcelain and marble porcelain with glass that's been molded to the back of the head with the butterflies stuck in the little holes. And really, this piece was kind of this catalyst for me because it was me learning how to be really tight, and to the point where I didn't like it. I got to a place where I would sand for like 3 days, just sand a piece, and I got super miserable, and I found myself not going to the studio. But I was there making this work. My intention was to get into grad school because I knew I wanted to teach. So, you know, I was building up this portfolio, and so this is kind of some of the work that I was making. This one's called Pavlov's Bell and like Bob's Bell. And the idea is, you know, over time, this scientist trained dogs to salivate by hearing a bell, and they knew that they would get a treat. And so kind of the idea is that if you kept seeing sweet things, you would start to salivate knowing that you were going to eat this thing. So that was kind of that piece. And then I started tinkering a little bit more with this idea of hybrids and animals and kind of dreamlike state quality. And I just started making a lot of work. And that's something that when people ask me, how did I get good? I got good by working. I mean, I did not come to this plate like knowing how to sculpt. I did not come to clay knowing how to do the face. For a very long time, I had a mold that I used, and I didn't really ever learn how to sculpt the face until a teacher was like, you need to learn how to sculpt the face from scratch. So I started making this work, and I started kind of getting more into the figure. And then I went to grad school. And University of Georgia was an amazing experience. There's a 3-year program. I ended up getting a full ride, which was fantastic. And then I literally made a bunch of installation art and performance pieces. So I'm going to show you all the work, some of the weird stuff that I made. And again, this whole idea that I was really attracted to the figure, I was really attracted to hybrids and telling kind of a weird narrative. All of the things on these women's heads are made out of porcelain, slip casted antlers that I made, and then I constructed them all together with mixed media. And I love this because if any of you guys know Kyungmin Park, she and I went to grad school together, and this is a lovely piece, portrait of her back in the day when she helped me take some photographs. So a great picture of me, real young, real strange looking. You know, so I made all of these objects that I could wear out of clay, and you know, I spent all this time doing that, and I would cast it. And then I would take these pictures, and I would find myself spending a ton of time trying to take better pictures, trying to edit my videos. And so I spent all this time focusing on stuff I didn't really want to focus on. And so by the very end of grad school, I had made all of this performance work and all of this video stuff that I didn't end up wanting to do anymore. And so I got out of grad school, and I kind of like hit the ground. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I wanted to make. And so, you know, I was taught that you just kind of keep making. So I started making vessels, and I was able to sell vessels. So I kind of got into this like rat race where I made all these vessels, and I would go to these street fairs and I would sell these things. And I did that for about 2 years, where I was like every weekend I was gone selling these vessels. Every week I would come back and I would make, and I was like a technician at a small community college here. So tech during the day, and I'd make at night, and then I would fire, and then I would go to this. And after 2 years, I like hit a wall, like a serious wall. And you know, it was my first artist block, and I like to talk about it because I really thought I was done. Like I really sincerely thought that like I was gonna have to find another profession, that this was over. You know, it was so dramatic at the time. Like I would cry, and I would go to the studio, and I would make something, and I would hate it so much that I would just like smush it. But one of the things that I think happens for everybody when you like hit a wall is you get to a place where it's like you realize a bunch of stuff. So I didn't make art for like 6 months. I would go to the studio, I'd make something, I'd smash it, or I'd just journal, I would cry, I would do anything but make anything consistently. And one of the things that I learned from this experience is that, one, I'm like a really weird person when I don't make art. Like I am squirrely, I'm like uncomfortable in my skin, like I need to run miles just to like get the energy out of me. So like I kind of came to this realization that art was an absolute for me. Like I had to do it. And that was weird. Like I didn't think that was gonna be my thing, but it is. Like I have to make art. The second thing I learned is, and I love this Andy Warhol quote, is like, don't think about making art, just get it done. Let anyone and anyone else decide if it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it, while they're deciding, make more art. And so I listened to all of these like self-help books, and really everything that's about creating is about that. It's like, just don't stop, you know, like make a bunch of bad stuff and grow from it. And then the third thing I realized is that I really wanted to be a part of a community. You know, that it was super important for me as an artist to grow, and that I had to be proactive about it, which meant I had to apply, I had to go out, I had to meet people, I had to be social, I had to do things that I felt uncomfortable doing at first, and now I'm fine with, but I was really awkward at first. And then I had to start trying to give back. So out of all of that, I land at the work that I'm making now. So a lot of the work that I make now is personal narratives about me and my life and the people in it. I have really reoccurring symbols that have to do with very specific things. So often I'll have duality in my work. I'll have kind of like consumption in my work. And so I always have a lot of swans, and the swans to me, for the white one, is usually like kind of grace and beauty, and the black one is always kind of anguished and mad. And that's kind of the two little things that are going on in my head all the time. I will have bears in my work, and that's usually about strength and courage, and bunnies are about fertility, because I'm kind of in that age of my life now where like that's on the docket. So, you know, I made all of this work that had all of this meaning kind of tied up into it, but it wasn't like smacking you in the face. You know, and each piece, I would say, like, I definitely have a backstory behind most of the work that I make. You know, and this piece was, I was in a town that was really, really conservative. And I had a lot of people ask me why I wasn't married, why I didn't have kids, you know, I was getting old, like kind of stuff like that. So this piece is kind of about my experience with a lot of people that have different views than me, kind of the duality of like, I'm choosing to do this and I'm not gonna follow this normal path kind of thing. And so kind of a lot of the work has a woman with her tongue out, and I kind of feel like that's me. Like, I'm a pretty lighthearted, like, weirdo, and I would make this work when I felt like nobody understood that that was okay. So this piece is kind of like this hand that kept like holding me back. Like, people kept saying comments to me that I was just like, I don't know why you can't just let me be who I need to be. You know, and I have snakes that come in, and usually when there's a snake, it's kind of about somebody who's being like slippery or sly in my life. You know, and dogs are a big one too. I've got a bunch of dogs. They're in my daily life. They're always loyal. So usually if a dog pops into my work, it's about loyalty. Rabbits, again, are about fertility. You know, and at this point, this is when I finally start getting a groove about what kind of work I want to make aesthetically. I realized that I needed to go back to porcelain. I had been making work in any other clay body but, because porcelain's so finicky. It likes to crack, it likes to warp, it likes to have a memory. So I came back to porcelain, and I started making this work where it was really clean and really smooth, and then I would spray the entire thing black, and then I would wash it all back and then sand. And so that's how I get this surface that we're looking at right now. And so I kind of liked how simple the black and white was, and I was beginning to bring color in here and there, and I was going through a time in my life where looking back on it, I had a lot of pride and I had a lot of ego, and I think the gold is the reflection of that. Like, I was constantly using all of this gold to like make things pop and make it really blingy. And I think it was because I was trying so hard to like live in that space that wasn't really working for me. So I kept making a lot of this work, a lot of these clusters, a lot of things kind of coming in and out, pushing and pulling. And this piece I love to show because after living in this place, like in the Deep South, for a couple of years, I finally moved to a place where I really connected. And that's actually where I met Travis. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. And I took a residency at Odyssey Clayworks. And I realized how much over the years I had been building up this like intense defense, and I had gotten really prickly, you know, so this piece is about me learning that about myself, that I can get really intense and I can get really sharp. And this piece is about me beginning to kind of shed that layer. You know, so I don't know, just all of my work is always about something that's coming in my life or going out of my life. So in Asheville, I ended up getting a man proposed to me, and I really sincerely thought that that was going to be this like amazing thing where people would get off my back for like being a single lady. And I found that it didn't. It just brought up all of these other things that I needed to like figure out, like when I was going to get married and how many kids I was going to have and what it was going to look like and what dress I was going to wear and all this stuff. And so I made this piece about that experience for me because I'm the thorny ram and he's the loyal dog. And in the middle is like all of this tree build up wall that I felt around getting married. and so after this man proposed, I moved back to Florida because he had been located here, and there was no way for him to move to me. I had to move back, and so I moved back, and I set up the studio, and I made this piece, and this piece is kind of about, am I gonna have kids? Am I not gonna have kids? Am I gonna, like, what are we gonna do when we get married? Like, I just had all of these thoughts and questions, and like my brain was buzzing. And I run a lot, and this was this really interesting kind of movement for me, where I was on a run and I hit a patch of like high grass, and all of these moths came like flying out of it. And as I'm looking at them like dispersing and scattering and having no direction, I was like, man, that's my brain right now. Like, I just can't pin down anything. And so I came home and I made this piece where I was just like, this is how I feel right now. I just feel like everything is just all over the place. And some stuff that this happened last year, I wanted to show it because something great comes out of sometimes the work that you make. And this was something where I had met a photographer, and she was like, I love your work. I want to do something that is about like you as an artist. Let's try to make a piece that you're in. And so she pulled out that last piece that I showed you, and decided to take pictures like this, which I just think is super fun and super funny. So sidebar. Okay, so after all this life journey and all of this artwork that I've been making, this man and I break up. And it like kind of destroys me. So I start making a bunch of work about holding on to stuff, and my anger and my frustration, and not feeling like I kind of have it together. So this piece is about that, where I'm holding on to this thing that is now no longer a part of my life, and I'm trying so hard to like get it back. And that's kind of the tongue coming up, trying to like lift the hand. This piece is just me still kind of figuring out what's going on. Everyone's telling me to be a strong woman, and so Diana gets brought up in like Greek mythology and stuff, and if I could just, be stronger, it'd be okay. And like, I'm worried because my clock is running out, so all of my work for the next couple of slides is just kind of about me figuring it out. But I finally get some relief. So Summer Breeze is about me finally like settling down into like what my life is. This piece I made at Penland when Kyungmin and I taught a workshop, and I was making it just kind of talking about how I was feeling so much better, and Kyungmin ends up getting stung by a bee, and it swells like her entire leg, and we're like really thinking that she's no longer going to be able to teach this workshop. So I end up being like, I'm going to make this piece now have bees in it. Like there was like this immediate thing that had to happen. So that's kind of how that happened. And then, I'm still working through, I'm going in and out of like figuring out my mood. So I get onto like a lot of stuff that is about death. I kind of get into making skulls for a little bit. And then I don't know, like I'm finally getting better. I'm letting go of things, and then I fall in love again. So I make like maybe 6 or 7 pieces about falling in love, to the man that I'm married to now. He is the swan with brown eyes. I'm the swan with the blue eyes. So it's just a lot of this stuff is like, I don't know, it's so connected to my life. I like this. So all said and done, we're kind of getting up to this year. This year I had my first solo museum show at the Canton Museum of Art, and they made this really cool signage for me. And we talked a lot about like the symbols in my work. So the dogs is loyalty, birds is vibrancy and freedom, bears courage and strength, swan purity and balance, rabbit is fertility. A lot of times the color of the roses I choose to use have to do with some sort of symbolic reason. So red is passion, white is humility and innocence, yellows would be friendship, pink is gratitude. So I came into the show knowing that I wanted to make, again, a whole room about kind of yin and yang of life, the duality, the beautiful, the good thoughts, the purity versus kind of the insane chatter, the thoughts, the fears, the depression. So this piece is kind of the future is bright. I had just fallen in love again. The two bunnies are, me and my partner. We're in a hand that's holding us up on top of a head, which is usually me. Versus the opposite side, which is like this crisis that I always feel is happening in my head about my emotions and fears and what ifs and if I don't get it done and how long am I going to live for, blah, 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 blah. So this is kind of, when you walk into the gallery space, I've got the white head and then I've got the dark head, and then the whole entire room is divided right down the middle. So flanked those two heads are these two swans. And again, it's the duality. We've got the white swan, that has all the eggs, because fertility again is still a topic. And, the barren is this empty tree, things are dying, and this really anguished swan. And then this is the latest piece that I just made. And this was supposed to be for NCECA this year. A show that Ariel Bowman curated, and it's about thinking with animals, and I really love that topic because so much of my work is really it's me speaking through the animals. And so this piece is about we've been trying to have children and we're not having any luck, so we're gonna have to go get science on our side. And this piece is about me, this loyal dog, trying really hard to make this happen, and nothing's coming out of it, so I'm just kind of blind. And the rocky part is about how I got to this place, like how I got engaged and then not engaged, and then engaged again and married. So I really like this piece because it's right up to today. So I like to throw these in because I think everybody who sculpts gets totally burnt out, and when you get totally burnt out, my rule of thumb is to keep making. So I made a total insane amount of series of teapots. They are literally like short sketches of weird things that have just kind of came into my mind. They've been really fun to make. I haven't made them in about a year, but I'm like on the cusp of making some more. And again, it's weird animals that I see or things that pop into my head coming out. Somebody's got their volume on. Made some cups. I made a lot of cups. Haven't made those in a while. And then I'm kind of going to land on, just this idea of giving back. So one of the things that happened in the last couple of years is Travis and I and Kevin Rode, we started a collective, and part of that collective that was really important to us was developing a community in nationwide artists, trying to promote ourselves, trying to get involved, trying to give lectures and do demos and all that stuff. And we did that for a couple of years, and it was really amazing. And we had some really super talented artists in our group. So it was something that it taught me a lot about how important it is to stay connected and to be a part of things with other artists. And that's really great because I feel like the more you lean into ceramics, the more you lean into other artists and promoting each other, the bigger your world gets. So this is kind of one of those things where I never did this until I saw another artist do it, and I thought it was kind of cool. This is all the stuff that I did in 2019. Lots of shows. I show all the time. I believe if you want to become a national artist, you need to show nationally. So that means you actually got to pack that stuff up and so annoyingly box it and put it in the mail. And I'm kind of in a place in 2020 when a lot of great things were happening, and then this pandemic hit, and my workshops got canceled, and my first museum show now is probably going to be on just the computer. But it's all good. I feel like it's been a really good last couple of years for me, so I'm super grateful. The other thing that I did out of straight up like humor, man. If you were in clay long enough, there are so many problems you'll run up into. I just needed to start a page about all of the oopsies that everybody has. And I started it for two reasons. One, because I was teaching at Auburn and everybody was like, that's not going to happen to me. And I'm like, look, here's an image. This is exactly what's going to happen to you. And two, I wanted all of my students to see that even the best in the field still had issues. Because clay wins. It will win if you do not learn how to cooperate with it. So I started this page. It's totally fun. Go give it a look. Send me any of your casualties and I'll post it. Because at the end of the day, we've all chose this medium because it speaks to us and it resonates with us, but it definitely can own us sometimes. So I kind of wanted to land where I'm currently working, which I feel super lucky to be teaching at the school, Ringling College of Art and Design. It is a tiny art school in Sarasota, and I straight up love this place because I'm teaching art students. I primarily teach freshmen, and I don't teach clay. I teach 3D design and 2D design. But we do use Sculpey, so that's kind of what I'm going to show you. And the reason why I love teaching here is, for one, it's art students and they really, really want to be in school. And the second thing is when I teach these classes, a lot of them have to do with like construction and narrative and all of the things that like totally make me run really well as a teacher. So this is some of their work, and just kind of set up what we're doing. For my 3D classes, they have to design a character, a sidekick, and a villain, and then they have to design an environment for those 3 characters, and then they have to sculpt them. So they spend like the first like month and a half designing this stuff, and I mean, we make them do all the way down to like fingertips. Like we want to know what kind of fingernail polish they're wearing. And then we get into the nitty gritty and we start teaching them how to make armatures, and we use Sculpey, and then they get a real simple wood box that they have to make into an environment. So this is the kind of sketch work they have to do. They have to do turnarounds. They have to do a lot of different poses, a lot of different faces, and it's really cool for me to watch these students make 2D work that then they make come to life. You know, and they're so talented, man. Like they're super detail oriented. Like if I tell them to go work another 15 hours, they like giddy up and go do that. This is an environment that they made. So we give them 3 walls, that's it. And then they have to figure out how to design the rest of it. And it's really fun for me because it's a ton of troubleshooting, because they're like, I want to make, you know, I want to make a fishbowl. How am I going to make a fishbowl? I'm like, I don't know. We're going to like maybe try plastic spoons and see what we can do with that. And, you know, they're like, I want to make this awesome wooden floor. How do I do that? I'm like, popsicle sticks. Like, who knew? And some paint. So I don't know. It's really fun. I really enjoy working there. And they just make really cool stuff. So I love sharing it. I love this one because she was like, I'm going to make a cat that is like this awesome performer that just cries every night after work. And I just love it. It's got like little like black like running down the face. So tortured. So yeah, that's it. If you guys want to check me out, there's my webpage, my Instagram. You can email me if you have any questions or whatever. I'm always an open book. All right, let's stop sharing. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I've known you forever, and this is the first time I've actually seen a whole presentation of your work, so I'm thrilled on it. It's really great to kind of hear the different themes that you work with in your work, which is awesome. I mean, I have a ton of questions for you that I can ask, definitely. I mean, you talked a little bit about artist block, and I think that is really kind of important to talk about. I think for anyone that really has a pretty active studio practice, you definitely hit walls and anything. I mean, it doesn't even have to be studio. It can be life in general. If there's something, you know, a job that you kind of always hit a wall, and how you deal with that. I see that you make the teapots, which is kind of probably a nice step away from your work. Does that like help keep your studio practice like fun and kind of help mix it up a little bit?
Absolutely. I have found that like I don't really care what keeps you in the studio as long as you just get in there. You know, like if you're making, I don't know, pendants, or if you're making cups, or if you're making teapots, like are you just even making work that you trash, you know, like I think one of the things that happened, at least for me, is that I took it too seriously. You know, I got to a place where I was just like, oh my God, I'm not changing the world. I'm not the best artist ever. Like, da 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 da. You know, and when I let go of all of that, that's when I can make those fun, quick things that like have no pressure associated to them. And that almost is now exactly what I do. Like the minute I feel blocked, the minute I feel like I don't want to be in the studio, I usually will sit down and make something small.
Yeah, I think that's huge to any studio practice, is finding a way to keep yourself in the studio when you
Yeah.
really don't want to work on things. Because I know I personally hit walls all the time, and
Yeah.
I make face jugs, and that's like my
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that that's like your my face jug is your teapot, which I find thrilling because I'm always trying to justify why do I make these things.
Yeah.
Because I kind
And
of
I
hate
love your
face
face
jugs.
jugs. Like
You know, I
your
kind
face
of hate
jugs
them,
are
but
the
it's like
jam.
finding that thing that you can step away from the other work. I mean, being such personal work, I think there's a lot into them, which is like almost emotionally draining.
Hmm.
Especially, I mean, your work is super loaded with really, really personal issues, um, which is, I'm sure personally draining to kind of get through them. Um, the other question, like you went from basically black and white, and then color just came. Like I met you, your work was all black and white, and now it's like blowing up with color. Is there like a reason why you wanted to start bringing the color into your work, or?
Yeah. I would say, and this is not me not wanting to admit it, but I was scared of color for a while. So when I first started making that body of work, I just was like, I don't even know where to put it, you know? And I think the black and white was also where I was like emotionally. Like I felt like things were black and white in my life. And I just think that over time I got more confident, and it became important for me to bring that color in to kind of, I guess in a way, like bring it up, like bring the lightness to it, and not make it so stark. Um, yeah, I think color is a scary thing, and I dig it. And like your color, Travis, like honestly is my dream, and I have no idea how I'd get there. Like the kind of color you get on your work is so exquisite and so awesome, but it's bold, like it's hard. I don't even know where I'd put that kind of color, but I love color. So I feel like it's creeping into my work because I want it to be there. And I've just slowly have been trying to figure out how to make it work. Um,
I
yeah.
like that you said you were scared. I kind of feel like you're scared of color. I am the opposite. I'm scared of non-color.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I got to this group where I made a lot of the same services, and I felt a lot of the same pressures. And I think there's always a lot of pressure, and kind of the whole idea of being scared as an artist is really interesting to me. It's really easy to look from the outside and kind of just think that everyone has everything figured out.
Yeah.
When in reality, there's a lot of things you're working through that are probably, change is hard, especially even within your work. To even make, it seems like such a little change probably now that you've started using color. But at the time, it seems terrifying.
Intimidating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
I
hilarious
also
to me.
am going to do an Amico pitch because Amico came out with some killer Celadons and semi-matte cone six glazes. And when I discovered them, I mean, they might have been out for a while, but when I discovered them, it became a lot easier for me to be like, oh, this is going to work real well. So that's kind of crazy to think. I didn't even like dawn on that. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I love art. It's so funny to me, just like how terrifying and how stuck in your ways people get.
Yeah,
And like, how do you get over the hurdles of trying to make that next step? Which I think we're all constantly dealing with, even
totally.
like you can make work your entire life and it's always going to change, but it's like that change that's usually the hardest. I mean, you went from doing a lot of performance-based work, which I see a lot of similarities in your work.
Yeah.
And then you jumped into vessels, which was probably terrifying to kind of get into that. So
I like to show, I mean, showing that work to me is just showing like, man, I really, it took me a while to find my voice. It took me a while to find what I wanted to make for a while. And, you know, I think all of us are searching for that, or if we've landed on it, we're searching on how to like manipulate it or tweak it a little bit to kind of keep it similar, but keep us interested. You know, and I don't know, like I just think I had to go through all of that in order to land where I landed. And I wish it took me less time. Like I wish I knew what I was doing in grad school, because I would have probably maybe used that time a little bit better. But I think I had to make a bunch of insane performance work to realize that I didn't want to be a performance artist. So
yeah, I mean, you got to get there some way.
yeah.
With your work, so when you're making a piece, do you tend to plan things out, sketch, or kind of how do you go about, like, even, you know, you have so much going on in your work, do you like have it all sketched out from the get-go, or do you kind of just kind of feel it out as you're working?
So I usually will have like an idea in my mind of what concepts I want to talk about, and then I will start making, and a lot of times composition will talk to me. Like I'll put something somewhere and I'll be like, oof, this is not where it needs to go. And I used to, so, you know, in post-bac where some of that tighter work you saw, it was like just kind of boring. I used to plan from like A to like Z, like the entire way through. And over the time, I have found that when I constrict myself like that, I don't make. So like I have to leave it open so that I'm not like feeling like I need to follow this order, needing to follow these rules. Like I have to be able to like have these moments where it's like, oh, that is just not speaking to me. So I'm going to cut that ear off and reassociate it, or I'm just not going to even use a bunny altogether. Like it just isn't flowing well. And that took me years to let go of, because I used to think I had to start off with a sketch, and then I had to do it this way, and then I had to do it this way, and I had to do it this way. And I would find myself like vacuuming my room, folding all my laundry, cleaning my entire house, paying my bills, going grocery shopping before I'd get into the studio. So I have found that I need to keep this stuff like really open and really fluid for me to stay here, because this is super important for me to make work. And when I start to restrict it, that it dries up. So yeah, so technically right now, no, I don't sketch. I don't sketch anymore. I have a loose idea, but I keep the window open. You know, and it's super funny because I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't even know that was going to be on the docket. And I had to listen to other artists talk about that and own it for me to feel comfortable getting in that. And one of these books, and I promote it all the time, is called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she's got all of the stuff in there that talks about how the, like, just do your thing. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I don't care if it's like jewelry. I don't care if it's writing. I just don't care. Like, make stuff, because like we're creators. And the way that she talked about it, and I love this, is she was like, you know, if you are a creator and you're not fulfilling the creative like juices in you, you're kind of like a collie that's been stuck indoors all day and you're just tearing up carpet. Like you're just digging holes because you've got like all of this energy that needs to come out, and like you're just not satisfying that. So like that's my thing. Like I don't care anymore how it comes out. I just need to get it out, and it ends up being very personal and all of the stuff on top of it. But it just needs to happen. So I'm super open to how that works now.
Awesome. So you make a lot of wall work.
Yes.
We have a question that someone else is scared of making wall work, which I love the whole idea of it. So when you're making your wall work, and definitely some of it's larger, like how do you go about dealing with like hanging, and kind of how do you go about all that stuff?
Yeah, so I could be more formal and do cleats. I only will do cleats if it's like a heavier piece, like maybe 30 pounds or over. But if it's a smaller piece, or if it's a piece I feel like I can get away with putting 2 anchored screws into the wall, that's what I do. So I'm actually gonna go get a piece real quick and I'll show you the back. So I got this piece right here, and I have 2 holes in the back like this, and I do a courtesy thing where I actually put felt on the back of it so that when people go and install it on the wall, they're not like dragging my like little clay crumbs across the wall. And the big thing that I've learned over time is that those 2 holes are going into open spaces. So they're going into the back of the head of the woman and the rabbit. So they're actually, I can fit a screw in there, you know, enough so that it can sit on the wall flush. But I think in my lifetime, I've maybe made like 3 cleats out of wood and then have glued them so that I could, you know, screw a cleat to the wall and then hang that thing on top. But the rest of the work is that setup where it's usually 2 holes into some sort of open cavity. But then I can just map out where the screws go and I just hang it that way.
Great.
Yeah.
Some advice, if you're scared of that, like advice about kind of figuring things out. I'm
like
sure no
scared
one,
about wall work.
just in general, like work in general, I know like a
Yeah.
lot of making art is figuring out what works for
So,
you.
yeah, I like making wall work now. I like it. I'm gonna say this, it's gonna sound bad because it sells. Because people can put it in their house easily. I get a lot of stuff where they're like, I love your sculptures, but I got like 4 cats and I don't want them to like tip it over. So I used to only make sculptures, and at some point I was like, man, I need to start diversifying, and the wall work just happened, and then I just kind of kept growing on it. And you know, a lot of people that I looked at was like Christina Cordova and Lisa Clegg, and a lot of them have a variety of scale and types of work. You know, they can have full figures, or they have like, you know, smaller like pedestal pieces, or they've got wall work. And so that was something too that I was like looking into, is like, how can I diversify my work in order to make it more, not like marketable, but just make it more diverse. Like I needed to have less of just one type of thing. And the wall work's become really fun for me because I usually make a lot of heads, or I have these birds flying out of it, or the, you know, and I like that because it's actually like it's taking flight, you know, like there's a lot of negative space around it. So I think it can end up looking pretty cool. And you know, my challenge to anybody, if you're scared, like just make it this big and then make the next one that big and then make the next one that big. Like, just start off tiny, man, because like you kind of can't mess that up. Like you can just put a nail in the wall and like boom, and that gives you enough confidence to kind of step it up and scale. And I think that's the thing that I love about being an artist, is that we're all super, dude, we're problem solvers. Like we know how to do this stuff once we get into a pinch. And don't get me wrong, I made some wall work that like kind of hung on the wall, like it wasn't great, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't a large enough cavity, so like the screw kept hitting the back of the head or something. And I've just tweaked it over the years, where I've just gotten better at figuring out like visually and how it will hang better. But you know, for me, I'm scared to maybe start doing like full figures hanging on the wall. You know, like there's still stuff that I'm like, I need to start trying, and I should just follow my own advice and make like a 10-year-old dude.
I love the topic of being scared with creating artwork. It is, I mean, God, we all deal with it
We
so
do.
much, which
And
is,
yeah,
it's
I could
not
talk
talked
about
about.
it all day. Yeah.
It's never talked about. And I think it's one of those things where it's so easy to look at someone's studio practice and you're like, oh, they got it.
Yeah.
I think we're always, I don't know about you, but I'm always kind of thinking about like what's next with my own personal work, but like trying to get over kind of that barrier of probably nonsense. So you're usually scared about something that's, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You might lose a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
It's just like a fascinating thing to me, you know, just like
Yeah.
how you can get stumped on something and like how do you work through it to kind of move on to kind of that next step of where your work wants to go. So
Totally, dude. I got a lot to say on that topic, and there's been a couple of things that has helped me get over the hump of making work. And, for a while I was making those pots because they were selling. And so for a while I was attaching sales to my work as like that was part of its value. And in Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this idea where it's like, I needed to remove the financial component of making art as my sole financial thing. And when I did that, things really started like, I was letting go of like how much time I was putting in it. I was letting go of like what color it should be. I was just letting go of all of the stuff and just now been creating. And I think when you can get into a place where you're just creating or you just have the flow is when you end up making the best work. And the other thing that I say a lot to people is I would say like out of 5 pieces of art that I make, I usually like 1, and I like 1 because of like one very specific thing, but the stuff that's in my head is so epic compared to what I can get out of my fingers. That's what keeps me in the studio. The dream of mine would be make work like Pay to Coin, where it literally fills an entire gallery space and overwhelms you like crazy. And that just seems insane. You know what I mean? But it's still there. And like, if I ever got to a place where like I needed to scratch that itch, like I would, and it'd probably take me like years, like I think, there's been a lot of moments in my life where people have given me like the permission slip to like just do it. And one of them was Anika, this presenter, and it's a shame I forgot her name. But she was like, look, I don't care what you do to make money, just keep making art. Like if you are, working a job just so that you can make art, like that's what you do. And I was listening to a podcast last night. Brene Brown is like one of my favorites. And she had somebody on there that said, oh shoot, where did I put it? It was something about like, if you have longings, that's where you should go back to, because that's the stuff that needs to happen. Like if you have a longing, you need to satisfy it. Hold on. All right, here it is. Longings are the most elegant way our soul speaks to us. And this is the kind of stuff I do when I listen to things and I'm like, oh man, like I need to repeat this like all day. I write it down on paper. So I love that. Longings are the most elegant way our soul speaks to us. So if you've got a longing to do something, like it eventually should be like tapped into,
Yeah. Great. I'm gonna finish one more question. So I know you don't sketch a lot. We do have a question that's do you have a practice where you sketch at all, like anymore, or are you just kind of more sticking to working with clay?
I sketch. I mean, if I can't get to clay, I'll sketch. And often the places I sketch will be when I'm in meetings. God, I should not say that as a teacher. When I'm in meetings, I'll sketch. I will sketch when I'm in other people's presentations. I will often like something will hit me and I'll write it in my sketchbook or sketch it. Really, I almost inevitably will come back to sketching if I just feel like the well is dry. Like if nothing is coming out, like just intuitively when I get into the studio, then I'll sit down and I'll be like, okay, what topics do you want to focus on? What do you want to say? What colors are you interested in using? And I'll kind of start there sometimes. And usually I won't get to them. Like usually they're not necessarily what I want to make, but it's just enough to get that like juice flowing that gets me back into the studio. But to be honest with you, the way that I love it the most is if I can continue to make, I get a great stride. So like I'm about to come on to like a solid month where I can just make. That piece that I make at the end of this month is going to be awesome. Like I know it. Like I'm going to have 2 or 3 crappy ones, and then I'm going to get to that one that like is going to be epic. And it's just because when I get into a stride, it's like so much easier for me to see proportions and like scale and all of these things that like I struggle over when I just get back into the studio. So it's like I'm fleshing out a lot of stuff in those first couple of pieces to get to this really great solid piece. And that's kind of like the glory for me, is when I get a chunk of time where I don't have a ton of other obligations, like work, to make. And I do think all of us like squirrel to get to that. Like we're like, when am I gonna get to that? And you know, you and I have done a bunch of residencies, and that's a really good place for me to get to just a block of time where all I have to do is make. You know, so I'm a big fan of residencies because it kind of like plucks me out of my life and puts me into a studio just to make. So yeah,
Great.
I saw somebody on there asked about how did 600 pounds of clay arrive at your house on a pallet, and then I just carried it in box by box. Yeah. Sorry,
Great.
I just had to answer that one.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us. It was great to kind of see your practice. As I said, I've known you for, God,
Yeah.
6 or 7 years now.
We're getting old, Travis.
I've never known this much about your work, so I am thrilled on hearing kind of more about what your work's about, and it sounds like everybody else was excited about it. I mean, I'm going to encourage, definitely reach out to Taylor if you ever want information about her work or you want another question that you wouldn't answer. Be sure to follow her Ceramic Casualties, especially if you're a ceramic person, because you will get a kick out of it, because we all deal with those things. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
It's great to see a lot of people kind of being in the business. And as I said, next week we're going to have Jamie Bates Sloan on here, who is another great ceramic figurative person to have. She'll be talking about her work, and I'm excited. Someone else I've known forever that I never heard an artist talk from, because these things are really opening up this whole realm of being able to do these artist talks and really bring people around the country and world together, which I'm really, really thrilled about. I do want to thank Touchstone Center for Crafts for making all of this possible, for helping fund the Zoom and helping orchestrate all of this to get this together. It is such a privilege to be able to sit and listen to all of these people talk about their work. I am so excited for all of the next ones coming up. Everything will be posted through Touchstone's website. You can register for any of the next 3 Zoom talks, and I also have the Instagram Artist Happy Hour series, and you can jump on that. I'll be posting the list of artists coming up, which we'll be planning up through the next couple months of keeping these going. So thank you all, and hopefully we all see you next week.
Thanks, T. Bye.
Y'all have a good night.
Too.